After my rebirth, I made a point of avoiding Chloe at every turn. When she returned from an assignment and passed by the front of my school, I'd slip out the back to miss her. When she took her first love out dancing for his birthday, I stayed in and studied by myself. On the day college applications were due, she was transferred to a post in Austin, so I made sure to get into a university in Boston. I did this because in my past life, after failing my entrance exams, I had accepted Chloe's marriage proposal. But after the wedding, she became a completely different person. Her deployments would last 2 or 3 years, and she'd only be home for a day or two before leaving again. I knew she looked down on me for failing to get into college, that she thought I wasn't worthy of her. So I did my best to be the perfect military spouse, raising our children and caring for our parents, never once complaining. But on her deathbed, when I asked if she had any last wishes, she said, "I want to divorce you and marry Liam Anderson. That's the only way we can be buried together." She added, "As for that acceptance letter I took from you, I've paid for it with my entire life. Ethan, I don't owe you a thing. I don't have much time left, and I want to spend it with the man I truly love." I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. It wasn't that I had failed my exams all those years ago. It was that Chloe had stolen my acceptance letter and given it to Liam. He went on to become a university professor, while I became nothing more than a small-town farmer, my world confined to the kitchen. All along, Chloe and Liam had conspired to steal the life that was meant for me. An icy dread filled my heart, and I was so unsteady I could barely stand as I questioned her, my voice raw with anguish. My own children, however, just grew impatient with me. "It was just an acceptance letter. What's the big deal? Dad, no offense, but even if you had gone, you probably would have dropped out. You never would have been as successful as Uncle Liam." "Exactly. You've been a military spouse for decades. It's not like you had a hard life. Mom and Uncle Liam have always been in love. You're the reason she had to sneak away all those years to be with him. Why can't you just step aside? We're tired of having such a pathetic father." I finally understood. Of the 50 years of our marriage, Chloe had spent 48 of her deployments with Liam. And my children, my own son and daughter, knew all about it. They helped her keep the secret from me. I stumbled out of the hospital in a stupor and walked right into the path of a speeding truck. When I opened my eyes, I had returned to the very day we were supposed to finalize our wedding date. "If there are no objections, we'll set the date for the 10th of next month. How does that sound?" Chloe's voice was low and steady, each word landing like a shard of ice in my chest.
"No."
I lifted my head, my gaze fixed on her. "I'm calling off the wedding." The room fell instantly silent. The very air seemed to freeze. My parents' eyes went wide with disbelief. Before Chloe could even react, my father slammed his hand on the table. "What the hell are you talking about, boy? You've been chasing Chloe for years, completely smitten with her. Now she's the one making the arrangements, and you decide to act high and mighty." My father's face was grim. "Ethan, don't be a fool. You're lucky a woman like Chloe would even look at you." My voice was steady. "She's a military officer. I'm just a poor kid from a small town. We're from different worlds. It would never work." Chloe stared at me, her gaze intense, as if trying to read my very soul. Her voice was low when she spoke. "Since I'm the one asking, those things don't matter to me. The volunteer program is ending soon. You'll come back to the city with me." In my last life, that one sentence had determined my entire future. But this time, I wouldn't be going anywhere with her. I pulled a cloth pouch from under my bed. I knew the real acceptance letter was with Liam. This time, I was going to get back what was rightfully mine. Late that night, when all was quiet, I snuck into Liam's room. Just as I expected, after rummaging around, I found the acceptance letter tucked away in his closet. In the faint moonlight, I could see my name printed clearly on the paper. Tears streamed down my face. I swapped it with a forgery, clutched the real letter tightly in my hand, and hurried out. In the days that followed, I was a changed man. I no longer trailed after Chloe like a puppy, fetching and carrying for her. I stopped speaking to her unless spoken to. Even when she passed by and I felt her eyes on me, I would simply look away as if she were a complete stranger. At first, Chloe paid no attention, assuming I was just sulking. A few days later, after the fall harvest was complete, the town held a bonfire social. There was a part of the evening for choosing dance partners, and the men got to choose first. I drew the lot to be the first one to pick. Chloe stood in the crowd, expecting me to choose her, which would force her to dance with Liam as a backup. As she was probably planning her rejection, she heard my voice. "I choose Sarah Jenkins." The look on Chloe's face soured instantly. For the rest of the night, she was completely distracted while dancing with Liam. After the social ended, Chloe cornered me. Have you forgotten we're engaged? She demanded. How dare you flirt with another woman? I almost laughed. If you think I'm flirting, then maybe we should just call off the engagement. It would save you the trouble. Her expression turned to ice. Impossible. The word escaped her lips before she could stop it, and her vehemence stunned me. Just how much did she love Liam, that she was so desperate to sacrifice her entire life for his sake? I didn't bother arguing anymore. I just turned and walked away. As the party ended, everyone started heading home in small groups, and I found myself walking alongside Liam. The mountain path was treacherous in the pitch-black darkness. Suddenly, Liam slipped. He cried out as he tumbled backward, and I instinctively reached for him, but his weight pulled me over the edge of the slope with him. We both managed to grab onto a dry branch, leaving us dangling in midair. Below us was nothing but bottomless darkness, the wind howling like a wild animal. The other townspeople gathered at the top of the ridge, their voices a worried murmur. There's only one rope, not enough time to go back for more. If they pull one up, the other will lose his grip and fall. Chloe, you're in charge here. You have to make the call. I say we save Ethan. He's a hard worker, a good man. Yeah, and he's her fiancé, right? Of course she'll save him first. Chloe stood at the edge, her eyes fixed on the two of us suspended over the abyss. Liam's face was ashen, his eyes begging. Chloe, save me, he pleaded. I just held on, my gaze calm as I watched her. She hesitated for only a moment before speaking, her voice clear and firm. Save Liam first. My heart plummeted as if struck by a physical blow, and a bitter smirk formed on my lips. I knew it. No matter how many chances I gave her, her choice would always be the same. The second they started pulling Liam up, the branch shifted violently. My grip failed, and I fell backward into the darkness. Luckily, the others were quick. Several pairs of hands shot out, grabbing my arms and hauling me back over the edge. I was dragged to safety, my body a mess of cuts and bruises. The townspeople crowded around me, asking if I was okay. What was that all about with Chloe? Isn't Ethan her fiancé? How could she choose to save Liam first in a moment like that? I'm telling you, there's something going on between those two. I bet they've been. Listening to their chatter, I could only manage a wry smile. I got to my feet, brushed the dirt from my clothes, and told them, I'm all right, don't worry about me. Then I turned and started the walk home. Back home, I cleaned my cuts and changed into fresh clothes. I had barely sat down when I heard footsteps outside. The door opened and Chloe walked in, carrying a small bag of medical supplies. Her voice was as low and businesslike as ever. I looked up at her, my expression neutral. What is it, Chloe? She frowned, clearly thrown off by my detached tone. She set the supplies on the table. About what happened today, she began, her tone explanatory. As the person in charge, I couldn't play favorites. That's why I had them save Liam first. As a future military spouse, you'll need to learn to be rational and not get emotional over trivial matters. Her words were so ridiculous I almost laughed. The old me would have been heartbroken, would have felt wronged, and would have twisted myself in knots trying to find excuses for her. Now I just found the whole situation absurd. I nodded slowly. You're right, Chloe. She froze, clearly not expecting such a calm response. She opened her mouth to say something else, but I cut her off. Is Liam all right? You should go be with him. He needs your concern more than a rough guy like me. The color drained from Chloe's face. She couldn't believe that the man who used to follow her everywhere was now actively pushing her away. She seemed to feel that I had become someone she couldn't understand. After a moment of silence, she finally said, Get some rest. I'll check on you another day. With that, she turned and left. I watched her leave, knowing she probably thought I was just putting on a brave face. But she would never understand. In this life, I refused to waste a single shred of feeling on her. My future was my own. Meanwhile, when Liam heard that Chloe had come to see me, he was furious. He found me by the lake, his eyes cold and a mocking smirk on his face. Do you really think a nobody like you deserves Chloe? Even if she marries you, you think you'll ever truly have her heart? You're just a poor farmhand. What makes you think you're in her league? I didn't argue. In my previous life, I had spent 50 years learning the hard way that every word he just said was true. So this time, I wouldn't fight for something that was never meant for me. I just wanted my own life back, the one Liam had stolen. Liam, I have no intention of marrying Chloe, and I'm not going to fight you for her. If you want her, she's all yours. His face went pale with shock. He clearly hadn't expected that response. It was like his punch had landed on a pillow. He gritted his teeth, then suddenly grabbed my arm and yanked me off balance, sending me stumbling into the lake. Help! Help me! Liam started screaming and flailing in the water. I just stood on the bank, watching him struggle with cold indifference. I knew he was putting on an act, but I had no desire to expose him or to help. Just then, Chloe came running up. The moment she saw Liam thrashing in the lake, her expression hardened. She shoved me aside and dove into the water without a second thought, pulling him to shore. Liam was soaked to the bone, his face pale, looking genuinely terrified. He collapsed into her arms, his voice a weak whisper. Chloe, I was so scared. Chloe's expression grew even darker. She helped Liam up, shot me a look of pure ice and said, "You'd better hope he's all right." Liam was rushed to the clinic, and since I was involved, the townspeople insisted I go along too. Half an hour later, the doctor rushed out, his forehead beaded with sweat. "It's not good." He inhaled a lot of water and hit his head on a rock. "He needs an emergency transfusion, but our clinic supply is low. We need a donor with type A blood now." Chloe's head snapped toward me, her voice a command. "You and Liam have the same blood type. You'll donate." Couldn't believe my ears. "And why would I do that?" Her face darkened, her voice tight with suppressed fury. "Because you're the one who pushed him in." I let out a cold laugh. "And how do you know that, Chloe? Did you see it happen? Or are you just assuming I'm guilty because I was standing there when he decided to take a swim?" My words left her speechless, unable to form a reply. After a tense silence, she said, "A man's life is on the line. Stop being childish. Give the blood now. We can deal with everything else later." She wasn't backing down, and I knew I wouldn't be able to leave until this was settled. I took a deep breath. "Fine, I'll give him my blood, but only if you agree to call off the wedding. After today, we're done." Chloe froze, her expression hardening. Through clenched teeth, she said, "Just give him the blood." I didn't say another word. I just turned and walked into the clinic room. I walked out feeling dizzy and weak. Chloe was waiting by the door. In a rare gesture of concern, she took off her jacket and draped it over my shoulders, but her tone was as commanding as ever. "Liam's awake." I scoffed and threw her jacket on the floor. Liam jumped in himself. I said, my voice like ice, "Believe it or don't, but I'm not apologizing for anything." When I got home, I immediately started packing my bags. The start of the semester was just around the corner, and I wasn't going to let anyone stop me from living the life I was supposed to have. Luckily, when my parents saw me packing, they just assumed I was getting ready to leave for the city with Chloe, so they didn't ask any questions. A few days later, Chloe personally picked Liam up from the clinic, fussing over him and telling everyone in town not to give him any strenuous work. Meanwhile, she completely ignored the fact that I, fresh from donating blood, was back toiling in the fields under the blazing sun. Some of the neighbors couldn't stand to watch it. They pulled me aside, advising me to smooth things over with Chloe, to say a few sweet words to win her back before I lost such a good match. I just smiled. "I'm not marrying her. We already called it off." In the face of their shocked stares, I just kept my head down. Every day, I worked and secretly saved every penny I could, preparing to leave. The end of the volunteer program and the start of the semester were drawing near. I kept my savings in a rusty old tin box. It held all my hopes for the future. Then one day, Chloe showed up at my house laden with gifts. Dressed in her crisp officer's uniform, she smiled warmly at my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller, these are for you. A small token of my appreciation before Ethan and I leave for the city." I froze, nearly dropping the bowl in my hands. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I strode forward and demanded, "What are you talking about? Leave for the city with me? You agreed to end the engagement." Chloe frowned, a hint of exasperation in her voice. "You were just angry, Ethan. I didn't take it seriously. An engagement is a serious commitment. You can't just call it off on a whim." I was so furious I could feel the blood drain from my face. I couldn't believe she would go back on her word, that she would so blatantly ignore what I wanted. I opened my mouth to argue, but my mother beat me to it. "Stop being so ungrateful," she scolded. "A woman like Chloe wanting to join our family is the best thing that's ever happened to us. Why are you making such a scene?" My father chimed in, his face stern. "Don't you know a good thing when you see it? You're a small-town kid. I don't know what you did to deserve a woman like Chloe taking an interest in you." I clenched my jaw, forcing down the rage boiling inside me. I looked straight at Chloe, my voice cold as steel. "He's right, Chloe. You're a respected officer. Why would you want to marry a simple guy from the countryside? Unless you have a reason you have to marry me?" Her expression flickered. For a second, she seemed to think I knew something, but she quickly dismissed it. Her voice softened. "I'm marrying you because I love you, of course. I let out a bitter laugh. Love me? Is that why in 50 years of marriage you'd spend 48 of them away with Liam? Is that why your dying wish would be to divorce me so you could be buried next to him? Is that why you'd steal my acceptance letter and destroy my entire future? All for him? I ignored her and went into my room. There was no way I was marrying her. The semester started in 2 days and I would be gone. The night before I was set to leave, a torrential downpour began. Everyone in town was called out to the irrigation canals to prevent a flood. As my parents scrambled to put on their rain gear, I slipped the acceptance letter inside my shirt. The rain intensified, and the water in the canals rose quickly. I joined the others, desperately piling up sandbags. Just then, Liam appeared under an umbrella, his face pale. "Chloe, I came to help," he said. Chloe rushed over to him, her voice scolding. "Liam, what are you doing here? It's too dangerous. You need to go back." He shook his head stubbornly. "No, Chloe. I'm staying with you. I can't let you face this danger alone." She frowned, about to argue more, but at that exact moment, the embankment gave way. A wall of water surged toward us like a beast, knocking me off my feet. The torrent swept Liam away too, and Chloe had to grab him with her other hand. The current was getting stronger, and I could feel her grip weakening. I suddenly smiled. My voice was quiet, but I knew she heard me over the roar of the water. "Chloe, remember this. I genuinely loved you once. But now I genuinely want nothing more to do with you. After this, let's never see each other again." With that, I reached up and, one by one, peeled her fingers from my arm. I let the current take me, sweeping me away into the darkness. The last thing I heard was Chloe's desperate, heart-shattering scream. "Ethan!" At daybreak, I finally managed to pull myself onto the riverbank. No one in town knew I was a strong swimmer. I had spent the entire night fighting the current and had finally made it to safety. I stumbled to the old abandoned chapel at the edge of town, where I'd stashed my bag and the acceptance letter before heading to the canals. Without a moment's hesitation, I got on the first bus heading out of town. Through the window, the sky, washed clean by the storm, was a brilliant, clear blue. As I watched the town disappear behind me, a profound sense of relief washed over me. I knew from that moment on my life was finally my own. When Chloe next awoke, she was in the town clinic. The sharp, stinging smell of antiseptic filled her nose, and she wrinkled it in distaste. "Ma'am, you're awake." Her second-in-command hurried to her side to help her sit up. "Where's Liam? Is he okay? Did they find him?" she asked urgently, grabbing the man's arm. "Don't worry, ma'am. The townspeople found Mr. Anderson. He's in the next room. The doctor checked him out. It's just some scrapes and bruises. Nothing serious." The man paused, glancing at Chloe before continuing hesitantly. But as for Ethan Miller, his tone was hesitant, as if he didn't know how to break the news. At the mention of my name, a strange sense of panic gripped Chloe. "What about Ethan? Spit it out. How many times have I told you not to mumble in your reports?" Startled by her sharp tone, the man snapped to attention. "Ma'am, our men and the townspeople have been searching for 3 days and nights, but there's no sign of Ethan Miller. The old-timers think he was likely washed too far downstream." "How is that possible? It's not that big of an area. How can they not find him? Get back out there and search now. I don't care what it takes. Find him." Chloe was so agitated that she moved too quickly, jarring an injury and sucking in a sharp breath of pain. Seeing her desperation, her subordinate didn't dare hesitate. "Yes, ma'am. I'll organize a larger search party right away." But he couldn't help but wonder. She had never seemed to care much for me before. This sudden concern was out of character. After he left, Chloe sank back against the pillows, feeling drained. It was strange. She couldn't understand why she felt this frantic sense of urgency. When she closed her eyes, all she could see was the moment I let go of her hand, right before everything went black. Why had he let go? Did he assume she would choose Liam over him? In that last moment, before the water took him, he had told her they would never see each other again, and that he had once truly loved her. What did it all mean? 1,000 questions spun in her mind, but there was no one to answer them. She thought it over and over, finally deciding that she had to find me and demand an explanation. Chloe resolved to join the search herself. After all, I was her fiancé. She couldn't just wait by the sidelines. She was just about to stand when a knock came at the door. "Chloe, I heard you were up. I came to see how you were doing." Liam walked in, his eyes red-rimmed as he looked at her in the bed. "Chloe, you're finally awake." Normally, a sight like this would have made her heart ache for him, but today, she felt nothing. She just stared. A strange thought had wormed its way into her mind. If Liam hadn't shown up, maybe I wouldn't have been swept away. Maybe I wouldn't be missing right now. Seeing her blank expression, Liam grew concerned and gently nudged her arm. Chloe? What's wrong? His touch snapped her out of it. I'm just still a little dizzy from waking up. I'm glad you're okay. We both made it out, but they still haven't found Ethan. Since he had brought me up, Chloe was about to suggest they search together, but his next sentence stopped her cold. Chloe, college registration is this week. I need to get my things ready. The wedding is obviously postponed, but I can't miss registration. I don't think I'll be able to help with the search parties. The urgency in his voice was unmistakable. He knew it sounded callous to bring up college at a time like this, but registration was just days away, and he couldn't afford to waste any more time. Chloe was taken aback. I had been missing for days, yet Liam showed no concern for my well-being. His only worry was missing the start of the semester. It was as if my life meant nothing to him. Staring at his familiar face, Chloe felt a sudden sense of distance. He seemed like a stranger, or perhaps she had never really known him at all. I'll let the search party know. You don't need to join them. Go home and get some rest. Her tone was cool, but Liam, completely oblivious, was just happy to be excused and quickly left the room. After he was gone, Chloe stared up at the ceiling and began to question whether sacrificing everything for Liam had been worth it. Against her doctor's orders, she checked out of the clinic. By day, she joined the search parties. By night, she stayed in my old room. It was the only place she felt any sense of peace. My room was sparsely furnished. Just a desk, a chair, a small wardrobe, a lamp, and a bed. Seeing the thick stack of textbooks and notes on my desk, Chloe felt an unfamiliar pang in her chest. I must have worked so hard to get into college. She could still vividly recall the day the acceptance letters were handed out, the look of utter devastation on my face when my name wasn't called. She had felt a twinge of guilt then, but she had already made up her mind to secure that spot for Liam. Marrying me was the only way to guarantee his secret would be safe. A sudden gust of wind rattled the window, and as Chloe moved to close it, she accidentally knocked a pen off the desk. As she bent to pick it up, she noticed the small cloth pouch I kept under the bed was missing. She frowned in confusion. My aunt had given that to me. It was the one thing I treasured most. Why would it be gone? Theft was unheard of in our small community, so it had to have been taken by someone who lived here. Chloe opened my desk drawer and saw that it was mostly empty. When she opened the wardrobe, she found all my clothes were gone too. Her hand tightened on the wardrobe door. A chilling realization washed over her. This wasn't a simple case of a missing person. It was far more likely that I hadn't disappeared at all. I had planned my own departure. The thought itself was a shock to her system. But why? We were about to be married. Why would he leave? And why would he do it without a word? Chloe racked her brain, trying to remember anything unusual about my behavior leading up to the flood, but nothing came to mind. Suddenly, her vision swam with black spots. Whether from her injuries or sheer exhaustion, she swayed on her feet and collapsed onto the floor. The next thing she knew, she was being woken by the sound of loud sobbing. She forced her eyes open to see Liam sitting beside her, weeping. The moment he saw she was awake, his tears stopped. My acceptance letter, he choked out. It's a fake. The admissions office said the official seal is all wrong. He handed her the letter as he spoke. How is that possible? Chloe murmured, taking it. How can it be a fake? She distinctly remembered taking the letter from my room herself. She examined it. While it looked similar, the paper felt completely different, and the color of the university seal was slightly off. Putting all the pieces together, the missing clothes, the empty room, the fake letter, a terrible suspicion began to dawn on her. Could he have known? Did he know that Liam was supposed to take his place? But that was impossible. To be safe, only she and Liam knew the plan. How could I have found out? Chloe, what do I do now? Liam pleaded. The admissions office told me to go home and see if the real one was swapped out. But who could have done it? Only you and I knew. His voice was frantic. Do you think it was Ethan? He suddenly asked. What if he found out about our plan and stole the real letter? The thought mirrored her own suspicion perfectly, but right now, she was far more concerned with a different question. Where was I? Only we knew about this. I'll have my people look into it. But what about my registration? The university is waiting for an answer, Liam said, growing more agitated by her calm demeanor. He could still picture the scene at the admissions office. The long line of students, and he was the only one with a forged letter. The humiliation was unbearable. He was used to being the center of attention, admired by everyone. He had never been so embarrassed in his life. I told you I will look into it, and it's impossible that Ethan took it, Chloe snapped, her patience clearly wearing thin. Liam, who had never seen her this irritated, was taken aback for a second before quickly changing his tune. He knew that angering her now would be a disaster. Not only would he lose his chance at college, but his spot to return to the city might be in jeopardy as well. Thinking fast, he softened his expression and gently took her arm.
Chloe, I'm sorry.
I'm just so worried, that's all. Especially since you were willing to marry Ethan, all for me. Chloe instinctively started to pull her arm away, but before she could, the door to the room swung open. What is going on here? It was my parents. Seeing the two of them together, their faces hardened. Chloe Vance, what is the meaning of this? You're the one who arranged this marriage, and this is how you behave. Is this how you plan to treat our son? My mother was livid, and she didn't care about Chloe's rank. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, it's not what it looks like. Please, let me explain, Chloe cried, quickly pulling her arm away from Liam. There's nothing to explain. We're simple people. We're clearly not good enough for an officer like you. Thank God our son is capable enough to get into college on his own merit. My father's voice was loud, and as he pulled my mother away, heads began to turn in the hallway. College? The word hung in the air, leaving both Chloe and Liam stunned. So I did know. I knew I had gotten in. Ignoring the stares of the onlookers and Liam's calls, Chloe turned and ran out of the clinic. She went straight to my old high school. Under the guise of checking records for the volunteer program, she asked for the list of students who had been accepted to universities that year. When she saw my name on the list, her worst fears were confirmed. A wave of panic washed over her, a feeling that was more than just guilt. It was a complex, tangled emotion she couldn't even name. All she knew was that she had an overwhelming urge to see me, to ask why I had left without a word, and to ask what I meant when I said I didn't love her anymore. Chloe's mind was in absolute chaos.
Excuse-me, son.
My wife's getting on in years. Would you mind letting her have your seat for a bit? I opened my eyes blearily to see an elderly man gesturing to his wife beside him. I was exhausted from the long bus ride, but seeing how frail the couple looked, I couldn't refuse. Of course, I said, getting up immediately. Please take my seat. I gathered my bags and moved to stand in the aisle. Gazing out the window at the passing landscape, my spirits lifted. It was my first time on a train, and despite the long journey, everything felt new and exciting. I couldn't wait to start my new life at college. About 15 minutes later, the man came back over. Son, you can have your seat back. We managed to get tickets for another car. I nodded and went back, only to find they had moved to the seats directly across from me and had left a package of cookies on my seat. Seeing my confusion, the woman explained, they're a local specialty from our hometown. A little something to thank you for giving up your seat. Oh, you didn't have to, I said. I needed to stretch my legs anyway. I tried to refuse, but she pressed the package into my hands. Nonsense, you take them. Not wanting to be rude, I finally accepted her kind gesture. She commented that my accent sounded familiar, and we struck up a conversation. When I told her I was heading to college in Boston and mentioned the name of the university, her face lit up. She told me her granddaughter, Jessica Reed, went to the same school. I smiled politely but didn't give it much thought. It was a big school with dozens of majors. The chances of us even being in the same department, let alone the same class, were slim. When the train arrived, I wished them well and headed for the campus to register. Staring up at the imposing university gates, I felt a moment of disorientation. My mind drifted back to my past life. After getting my wish and marrying Chloe, I hadn't found happiness. Instead, my life had become an endless cycle of chores and childcare. I spent every waking moment on my family, with no time left for myself. Chloe and the children never said it out loud, but I knew they were embarrassed by my lack of education. Her formal military functions, my children's parent-teacher conferences, every event was a painful reminder of the gulf that separated me from everyone else. I had never gone to college or held a real job. I had wanted to change that once. I'd looked into night classes, but Chloe shot down the idea, saying the children needed me at home. I let her convince me, and eventually, I gave up on the dream altogether. Looking back on it now, I could see that in everything she did, Chloe had only ever thought of herself. She never once considered my feelings. She stole my entire future for the man she loved, and she didn't feel a single shred of remorse. In her mind, the college education I had worked so hard for rightfully belonged to Liam. But this time was different. I had a second chance, and I would not make the same mistakes again. Chloe, Liam, this life belongs to me. Hey, do you need a hand with that? A warm, pleasant voice broke through my thoughts. I looked up to see a young woman in a blue blouse standing on the steps. The sun caught her face, making her eyes seem especially bright. I stared for a second before she gestured to my heavy suitcase. "Oh no, I've got it, thanks. Could you just tell me where the registration hall and the men's dorms are?" "Sure," she said with a smile. "Follow me." She walked over and took the handle of my suitcase as if it were the most natural thing in the world. It didn't look like much, but the bag was heavy, packed with books. I didn't protest again. I just gratefully accepted her help. After I finished registering, she walked me all the way to the men's dorm. "I really can't thank you enough for all your help today," I said, feeling a little guilty as I noticed the light sheen of sweat on her forehead. "Don't mention it. Helping freshmen is part of my job as a student guide. I'm Jessica Reed, by the way." "What's your name?" "Jessica Reed?" The name sounded familiar. It was the name the woman on the train had mentioned. But it was a common enough name, and I didn't want to seem presumptuous by asking, so I held my tongue. "I'm Ethan Miller." We introduced ourselves, and then Jessica had to leave to help other new students. I hauled my suitcase up 6 flights of stairs and opened the door to my room to find I wasn't the first one there. A guy was already unpacking on the top bunk. When he saw me, he hopped down from the bed to introduce himself. "Hey man, I'm Mike Davis." I was a little nervous, but his friendly energy immediately put me at ease. "Hey, Ethan Miller." After we introduced ourselves, we started talking. Seeing that I didn't have much to unpack, he suggested we grab a bite to eat at the dining hall and finish setting up later. As we were about to head out, something fell out of my bag. Mike was quick and scooped it up. "Whoa, Ethan, watch out. Don't want to break this." I looked down and saw it was a small jade pendant Chloe had tried to give me. I was sure I hadn't taken it, so she must have left it in my room, and I'd packed it by mistake. "It's nothing, just a little trinket." I tossed it on my desk and headed out the door with Mike. Ever since that day at the clinic, Liam had noticed a distinct shift in how people treated him. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but the change was palpable. Before, he was always exempt from the most difficult and dirtiest jobs. Now, looking at the new work roster, he saw his name listed for multiple tasks, amounting to twice the workload of anyone else. Liam felt it was deeply unfair. He took the roster and stormed into the supervisor's office to complain. "Sir, who made this schedule? It's completely unbalanced. I demand that you change it." The supervisor saw it was Liam and took a slow sip of his coffee. "Ah, Mr. Anderson, I'm afraid I can't change the roster. The assignments are rotated among everyone. How is that unfair?" Listening to his evasive answer, Liam grew angry. "You must have forgotten. Officer Vance gave specific orders that I was to be excused from strenuous labor." The moment he mentioned Chloe's name, his confidence returned. His connection to her had ensured that everyone, from the supervisor to the town mayor, treated him with respect. "Officer Vance did say that, yes. But this is a new roster, and the assignments were decided by a vote among the volunteers. I can't just change it. Besides, the others have been covering your share of the work for long enough. You're the only one who gets credit for doing nothing. If you have a problem with it, take it up with Officer Vance." Liam's confidence wavered. He nervously twisted the hem of his shirt, a flicker of resentment in his eyes. He had been trying to talk to Chloe ever since that day at the clinic, wanting to demand why I was at college instead of him, but she had been avoiding him. Liam slunk out of the office in defeat. The other volunteers, who already resented him, saw that his complaint had failed and immediately started whispering among themselves. "See? What goes around comes around. He does nothing all day and gets the most credit. It's time he learned what real work feels like. Tell me about it. He acts so high and mighty, but I always thought there was something weird going on between him and Officer Vance. You won't believe it, but guess what? Ethan's parents walked in on him and Chloe. Half the town saw it. Now Officer Vance won't even speak to him. Let's see how smug he is now. No wonder she chose to save him instead of her own fiancé during the flood. The truth always comes out." Their voices were low, but the sound of their snickering was sharp and clear. Liam, standing just a short distance away, heard every word. He burned with a mixture of anger and shame, but he couldn't say a thing. It was true. Chloe was ignoring him. After days of physical and mental torment, Liam decided he had to see Chloe. He changed into his best clothes and went to her quarters. Strangely, no one stopped him this time. He found her easily, and she seemed to be expecting him. An inexplicable sense of dread crept over Liam. Chloe seemed different somehow. "Liam," she began, her voice quiet, "what am I to you? To put it more bluntly, did you ever love me at all?" Her question caught him off guard, but he knew he had to answer carefully. "Chloe, why would you ask that? Of course my feelings for you are real. Why else would I have followed you out to this miserable place? You know how much I hate living like this." As he spoke, his eyes welled up with tears, making him look fragile and sincere. Chloe just let out a small, humorless laugh. "Is that right? You came here for me?" Without another word, she picked up a small wooden box from her desk and threw it at him. The corner of the box struck his temple, drawing blood. He cried out in pain and shock. "Chloe, you hit me? You should see what's inside," she said, her voice devoid of all warmth. Ignoring the stinging pain, Liam scrambled to pick it up. With trembling hands, he opened the box and saw his own journal lying inside. The strength left his legs, and he sank to the floor. He knew exactly what it contained, including the real reason he had volunteered for this assignment. "Chloe, I didn't mean to lie to you," he pleaded. "You know my family had to send someone, and when I heard I'd be with you, I was genuinely happy. And that other girl, that was an arranged setup by my parents. It had nothing to do with me." Blood trickled down his face as he groveled on the floor, begging for her forgiveness. Chloe looked at him and felt only a profound sense of disappointment. This pathetic creature was nothing like the man she thought she knew. She walked over and crouched in front of him, grabbing his chin in a grip so tight he thought his jaw would break. "You said you came here for me, so I did everything you asked. You said you wanted to go to college, so I risked my career to steal an acceptance letter for you. Liam, have you ever told me the truth about anything?" His eyes flew open, his face turning deathly pale. "Chloe, my feelings for you were real, I swear. Please, you have to believe me," he begged, grabbing at the hem of her uniform. "How can I believe a man who doesn't even care if someone lives or dies?" His pleading stopped, and his expression turned ugly. "And what about you? You didn't keep your promise to me. Now Ethan is off at college while I'm rotting in this hellhole. You claimed you didn't love him, but you were frantic when he disappeared. You're no better than I am, Chloe. You're just as ruthless and manipulative. Who are you to judge me?" Chloe slowly released his chin, then slapped him hard across the face. The force of the blow sent him sprawling, and he tasted blood. "You hate it so much here in the country, don't you? Well, guess what? I can make sure you never get to leave. Your parents are so eager for you to marry, aren't they? I'm sure I could arrange a nice, permanent match for you right here in town. Then they wouldn't have to worry anymore." "No, I don't want that. I have to go back to the city. Please, Chloe, I'm begging you, just this once. Please let me go," he shrieked. But Chloe gave him no such chance. She simply called for 2 of her men to escort him out. Liam fought and struggled, screaming curses as they dragged him away. "You're a monster, Chloe Vance. I'll get you for this." "Mom? Your transfer orders to Boston have been approved. Here's the paperwork. If you could just sign here. When would you like to depart? Book me a ticket on the next available train." Chloe let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. She walked to the window, looking down at the approved transfer papers in her hand, her heart beginning to beat a little faster. She had submitted the transfer request the moment she learned I was at college, but it had been stuck in processing for weeks. Now, with the official orders in her hand, she could finally go to Boston. Back in her room, Chloe packed a small bag. While clearing a bookshelf, she came across a small photograph. It was of the 2 of us. In the picture, I was leaning slightly toward her, a wide, happy grin on my face. It was the first picture we had ever taken together. I had begged her for it until she finally, reluctantly, agreed. I had given her the print afterward. Looking at it now, a wave of memories washed over her. She carefully tucked the photograph into her pocket. Staring at her reflection in the mirror, she made a silent vow. This time, she would not let me get away. It was only after I was truly gone that she had realized her own feelings had changed. Early the next morning, Chloe was on the first train to Boston, her heart a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. As soon as she arrived, she went straight to my university campus. Having already found out my major and my dorm building, she signed in at the front desk and waited outside. As students came and went, a growing sense of panic began to set in. She realized she was actually afraid to see me again. She saw someone who looked like me from behind and hurried to catch up, calling out, "Ethan!" The young man turned, a confused look on his face. He had the same build and hair color, but it wasn't me. Chloe realized her mistake, mumbled an apology, and went back to her waiting spot. She stood there for hours, waiting until evening fell, but I never showed up. Just as she was about to give up for the day, she saw me approaching from the other end of the quad. "Ethan," she called out, her voice low. My roommate, Mike, heard her and turned to look. "Hey, Ethan, I think that person over there is looking for you." I paused, following his gaze. When I saw Chloe standing there, my brow furrowed. What was she doing here? I thought she wasn't allowed to leave her post. Was this about Liam again? They must have discovered the letter was a fake and she'd come to confront me. But this was my spot, the one I had earned. It had nothing to do with either of them, and I had no intention of getting into a pointless fight. I grabbed Mike's arm and steered him toward our dorm. "Come on," I said. "I don't know her." My voice was cold, and I didn't spare Chloe a single glance. Chloe heard me, of course. She froze, rooted to the spot. She made a move to follow, but the dorm proctor at the entrance stopped her. Chloe had never been treated with such disdain in her life, but when she thought about what she had done to me, she had to admit she deserved it. Having come to this conclusion, Chloe turned and walked away from the campus with renewed determination. She had come this far. She would be patient. She would find a way to make me change my mind. Back in our room, Mike immediately went to the window to get the scoop. "Dude, that woman was gorgeous. You really don't know her? It looked like you did. Is she your girlfriend or something? You guys have a fight?" His rapid-fire questions left me at a loss for words. The truth was, my history with Chloe was complicated. For years, I'd been in love with her, but she only ever had eyes for Liam. Then, she suddenly got close to me, even agreeing to marry me, all so she could steal my college acceptance for him. In my last life, her plan worked perfectly. But this time, I'd gone completely off script. So what was Chloe to me now? My ex-wife from a life no one remembered? My ex-fiancé? A stranger I never wanted to see again? None of those labels felt right, and I certainly couldn't tell Mike the truth about being reborn. "We're not together anymore," I finally said. "I don't want anything to do with her. She's probably just here because she can't accept that it's over." It was the best explanation I could come up with. Seeing the pained look on my face, Mike had the good sense to drop the subject. "Hey man, I'm sorry," he said. "I was just being nosy. I didn't mean to bring up a sore subject." We hadn't known each other long, but I could already tell that's just how Mike was, so I didn't take it personally. I waved it off, telling him it was fine. I was just about to make my bed when I heard the RA calling my name from the first floor. "Phone call for Ethan Miller, room 601. I put down what I was doing and headed downstairs to the hall phone. A second later, a familiar voice came through the receiver. "It's me. Why did you pretend you didn't know me today?" It was Chloe, of course. Knowing her, she wouldn't let this go easily. "Are you calling about the acceptance letter?" "Yes, I swapped them. But let's be clear about one thing. It was my letter to begin with. I don't care what promises you made to Liam. I was just taking back what was mine." I kept my voice even, as if discussing a business transaction. "Ethan, you're mistaken. I didn't come here for that. I just wanted to see you." A flicker of confusion went through me. I couldn't figure out what her angle was. "Well, you've seen me. If this isn't about the letter, then there's nothing more to say. And if it is, I've already said my piece. Stop interfering in my life. The engagement is off. But you used to love me so much." Her words hung in the air, followed by a heavy silence on the line. She had come all this way for one reason, to hear me say I still loved her. Even a single word of confirmation would have been enough, but all she got was silence. A silence so long she started to wonder if I had hung up. With each passing second, her heart beat faster. Just as she was about to give up hope, she heard my voice again. "Chloe, I did love you. I truly, genuinely loved you. I was ecstatic when you agreed to marry me. Even when I figured out it was about the acceptance letter, I never planned to hurt you. I just wanted my own life back. I get that you love Liam. You love him so much you were willing to marry me for his sake. But did you ever stop to think how unfair that was to me? It was unfair from the moment he first came to you, wasn't it?" She had orchestrated the whole thing. She had believed she was in love with Liam, that his happiness was all that mattered, even at her own expense. Only later did she realize that to him, she was just a tool to be used. And only after I was gone did she begin to appreciate my devotion. But in the end, hadn't she used me as a tool as well? Now she couldn't accept the consequences, just as she couldn't accept that I had truly let her go. She was stubborn, refusing to give up until she got the answer she wanted. "Ethan, can we please just meet? Can we just talk, face to face? There's no us anymore, Chloe. Let it go." My voice was sharp with impatience. I couldn't understand how her feelings could change on a dime. When she didn't love me, she could play with my life as she pleased. And now that she decided she did, was I just supposed to forget everything and start over? "Chloe, please, just let me go. I just want to live my own life. That one sentence shattered whatever hope had been lingering in her heart. She felt as if she were waking from a long dream, a vast and overwhelming emptiness spreading through her mind. She hung up the phone in a daze and collapsed onto her bed. For the first time in her life, Chloe felt truly lost. She no longer knew what she wanted. It reminded her of when she was a little girl, asking her own mother why she had to leave them. Her mother hadn't given a real answer, only saying she would understand when she was older. Chloe could still remember the look in her mother's eyes, a mixture of resignation and peace. She felt like that little girl again, desperate for an answer she couldn't have. Chloe slept for a long time, not waking until the following afternoon. Her head ached, and as she opened her eyes and took in her surroundings, she was struck by a powerful sense of disorientation. Wasn't she supposed to be on her deathbed, giving her last words? Why was she here? She got up and looked in a mirror, and the face staring back at her was young. She touched her smooth skin in disbelief, then glanced at the calendar on the wall. She wondered if she was dreaming, but everything felt too real. Her hair was no longer gray. It was as if she was 25 again. But that couldn't be right. Just a moment ago, she had been dying. As she tried to make sense of it, a flood of memories that weren't hers, poured into her mind. They played out like scenes from a film. Her marrying me, the birth of our children, her on her deathbed, telling me her final wish. It took her half the day to process it all, to understand that these weren't her memories, but someone else's. It was a life she hadn't lived, but had somehow experienced. It was as if she had been given a glimpse into a future that could have been. And the version of me in this vision, he knew everything. That's why he had rejected her so decisively. That's why he knew where to find his acceptance letter. Suddenly, everything made sense. I had lived through it all once before. That's why I had changed so completely. An overwhelming, soul-crushing regret washed over Chloe. What she had done, what she was going to do, was unforgivable. She had failed me completely. As an architecture major, our assignments were usually quite specific. This week, for instance, we each had to sketch a building in Boston that we found interesting. Mike was the only other architecture student in my dorm, but he had gone home for the weekend. So, I decided to spend the weekend exploring the city and finding a subject for my sketch. Being new to the area, I didn't wander too far, mostly sticking to the main streets and asking for directions as I went. In the distance, I saw someone taking photos near the pond in the public garden. As I got closer, I realized it was Jessica. Just then, she turned and saw me, and walked over with a smile. "Ethan Miller. I remembered your name," she said. Her directness made me laugh. "Jessica Reed. I remembered yours too. In fact, I think I heard it even before we met." She looked a little confused. We had run into each other a few times on campus since orientation, but she clearly remembered meeting for the first time at the front gate. I just smiled mysteriously, then gestured to the camera in her hands. "Is that yours?" She nodded. "I have a project that requires some photos, so I brought it along. What about you? Don't tell me you're here for homework too." I gave a weary smile. What other reason would I be here on a beautiful weekend? "The light is perfect today," she said suddenly, looking right at me. "Let me take a few pictures of you. I can have them developed and give you the prints." There was a brightness in her eyes that made it impossible to say no. I stood awkwardly by the water's edge. For some reason, I always felt a little self-conscious around her. But Jessica was patient, giving me gentle directions until I relaxed. I found myself smiling naturally for her camera. Her straightforward compliments made me blush, and I could feel the tips of my ears getting hot. I quickly looked for a way to change the subject. I should probably get started on my own assignment. I need to find a good spot to sketch. She seemed a little surprised by my abruptness. Then, noticing my flushed face, she looked a bit embarrassed herself. "Well, do you want to head back to campus together when you're done? It's getting late, and I don't love walking back alone in the dark." "Okay, I'll meet you over there when I'm finished," I said, turning away quickly. After I finished my sketch, we started the walk back to campus. We fell into an easy conversation, and I found that she had a fascinating way of looking at the world, completely different from my initial impression of her. I had initially pegged her as a very serious, by-the-book kind of person, but we found we agreed on so many things, and her knowledge of our shared field was impressive. Just as we were nearing the main gate of the university, a familiar figure caught my eye. It was Chloe. She was back. I thought I had made myself perfectly clear last time. What did she want now? The smile vanished from my face. Jessica, walking beside me, noticed my expression change and followed my gaze to see Chloe approaching. I instinctively took a step back, and Jessica moved to stand slightly in front of me. shielding me from Chloe's line of sight. "Ethan, who is that?" Seeing Jessica's protective gesture, Chloe's expression darkened. She had finally begun to understand the truth of what had happened between us. She wouldn't let someone new get in her way. When I didn't answer, Chloe started toward me, reaching for my hand. But Jessica stepped in her path, blocking her way. Jessica glanced from Chloe's determined face back to me. "Ethan, who is she?" "She's just someone I used to know," I said, my voice cold and distant, making it obvious I wanted nothing to do with her. "He's my fiancé," Chloe snapped, pushing Jessica's arm away. "Who are you?" At the word, fiancé, a flicker of surprise crossed Jessica's face. She didn't say anything, but her eyes shifted back to me, waiting for an explanation. "Do you want me to stay?" she asked quietly. I sighed. I knew Chloe. Running away wouldn't solve anything. I had to face her. "Just call if you need me," Jessica said, her voice loud enough for Chloe to hear. She gave Chloe one last wary look before stepping away. Chloe was clearly agitated, and Jessica was not about to leave me completely alone with her. Jessica retreated a few paces, waiting around a nearby corner. Chloe shot her a look filled with annoyance, but when her eyes returned to me, they softened. "Is she a friend of yours?" she asked, clearly fixated on Jessica. I found her sudden concern for propriety laughable. When she was engaged to me, she had no problem carrying on with Liam. Why the sudden obsession with labels? "Chloe, who she is none of your business. I thought I made myself clear last time. Why are you here?" Her persistence was exhausting, and my voice was laced with weariness. My non-answer about Jessica clearly bothered her. "I just want to talk," she said, her voice earnest. I think I understand now what went wrong between us. Everything that happened before, it was my fault. I wronged you. I never should have given your letter to Liam. Please, can you just trust me one more time? I'll go to your parents, we can rearrange everything. I promise this time, I won't let you down." She spoke with a desperate passion, her eyes pleading. "Chloe, I am never going to marry you. If that's all you came here to say, then we're done." I turned to leave. "Ethan, have you forgotten everything?" she called after me. "Were there no happy moments in our life together?" Her words stopped me cold. I spun around, incredulous. "How could you possibly know about that?" I have these memories. They don't feel real, but I know they happened. I even remember our children's names." "Ethan, you remember it too, don't you?" Her voice was laced with guilt. After all, she was the cause of it all. "And what if I do?" I shot back. "Chloe, do you really think I should care about the feelings of a woman whose dying regret was marrying me?" My expression hardened as I stared directly into her eyes. The humiliation of that life was still fresh in my mind. My own children despised me. My wife spent 50 years regretting she had ever met me. For that alone, I could never forgive her, much less marry her again. "But I know I was wrong," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I truly know that now." She looked so fragile, so utterly defeated, as if she might collapse right there. "Chloe," I said, my voice softening slightly, "I don't regret loving you, and I don't regret letting you go. The past is the past. I'm not going down that road again. I have my own life now. Please, let this be the last time you come to find me. I have to go." I turned and walked away without looking back. Chloe started to follow, but the campus security guard, whom Jessica had quietly flagged down, stepped in her way and asked to see her student ID. She was forced to stand there and watch us go, completely helpless. Jessica and I walked in silence for a while, neither of us mentioning what had just happened, though I knew she must have overheard some of it. Finally, I broke the silence. "Thanks for what you did back there. I know you were just looking out for me." "Don't thank me. You helped me too, didn't you?" she replied earnestly, gesturing to her camera bag. "Thanks to you, I got some great portrait shots for my project." Her tone was light and respectful. It was clear she had no intention of prying into my personal life, and I was grateful for that. "That friend of yours seems a little intense, though," she added. "If you ever need backup when you leave campus, just let me know." Her offer warmed me. Knowing Chloe, it was very likely she would be back. "Okay," I said with a small smile. "I'll take you up on that." She walked me all the way back to my dorm before we said goodnight. As I watched her walk away, I realized how easily I had come to trust her. Maybe it was her personality, or maybe it was just how comfortable I felt in her presence. I felt like I had gotten to know the real Jessica today. Back in my room, I left my sketchbook on my desk. Mike, who had just gotten back, immediately picked it up. "Hey, this composition is really good." I knew he was teasing me about more than just the drawing, so I tried to change the subject. "When did you get back?" I didn't even hear you come in. Mike wasn't having it. Don't change the subject. I saw you. A girl walked you all the way to the dorm. Looked like an upperclassman, maybe from our department? Spill it. Who was she? How do I not know about this? His loud voice immediately drew the attention of our other two roommates, who were always ready for some gossip. The three of them surrounded me, and I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Realizing they weren't going to let it go, I told them the whole story, from how I first met Jessica during orientation to running into her at the park today. I tried to downplay it, but they were convinced I was leaving out the juicy details. I had to practically swear an oath that I was telling the whole truth before they finally let it go. After returning from the university that day, Chloe was in a daze. Her mind was constantly flooded with images of me, some from our recent encounters, others from that other lifetime that felt just as real. She grew listless and distracted. Her second-in-command, deeply concerned, took her to a hospital for a battery of tests, but they found nothing wrong. The doctors prescribed some sedatives at her request, but they didn't seem to help. As he helped her walk, her subordinate spoke cautiously. "Ma'am, headquarters is asking for you to return to your post." "My work here isn't finished," she replied, her voice firm. "I'm not going back." He tried again. "Ma'am, there's also the matter of an anonymous tip. Someone reported that you tampered with Ethan Miller's acceptance letter. There's no proof, so it hasn't caused any official problems, but who was the source?" Chloe wasn't surprised. Besides Liam, who else would be so desperate to see her fall? She walked to the window, watching the people bustling on the street below. After a long moment, she suddenly changed her mind. She was going back. Her subordinate assumed she meant she would finally follow orders and return to her official post, but that wasn't what she had in mind. She was going back to the small town, alone and off the record. "Let me come with you, ma'am. I'm worried about you in your current state." But her mind was made up, and there was nothing he could do to change it. And so, Chloe made the journey back to our small town, all by herself. As she packed, she left her medication behind. She took only a few changes of clothes and the small photograph she now carried with her everywhere. It was her most prized possession, the only tangible link she had left to me. When she arrived, she went straight to my old room. It was thick with dust, untouched since I had left. She found a broom and a rag and, with painstaking patience, cleaned the entire room until it was spotless. She didn't know why, but back in Boston, her mind had been a chaotic storm of memories. Here, in this quiet room, her heart finally began to feel calm. As a gentle breeze blew through the open window, a small, folded piece of paper fluttered out from the window sash. She picked it up and recognized my handwriting. Her hand began to tremble as she unfolded it. Written on the paper over and over again was a single name, Chloe Vance. Each letter was carefully, perfectly formed. The secret heart of a boy, laid bare on a scrap of paper. I had loved her so much, and she had never even noticed. Tears began to stream down her face. She stood there in my empty room for a long time, until just before dawn. Then, she left, taking the night train back to Boston. She had her subordinate submit a new request on her behalf, an application to volunteer for a high-risk, frontline deployment. At the bottom of the form, her signature, Chloe Vance, was written in firm, neat script. After our final exams were over, Mike insisted that we all go out to celebrate. Our other roommates readily agreed, and we found a small diner near campus. We hadn't known each other for long, but being the same age and living together, we had all become fast friends. Mike, especially, had been an open book from day one, telling us everything from his life story to the details of his long unrequited crush. Whenever the topic of romance came up, I usually just stayed quiet and listened to the others joke around. But tonight, for some reason, I didn't. I just came out and said that I had been engaged once, but I was the one who called it off. The cheerful chatter at the table immediately died down. Mike and the other two guys just stared at me, unsure of what to say. Offering condolences didn't seem right, but saying nothing felt cold. After a moment of awkward silence, Mike was the one to speak up. "Look, I don't know the whole story," he said, "but I know Ethan is a good dude, so any woman who made him call off a wedding must have been bad news. Am I right, guys?" The other guys immediately chimed in. "Mike's got a point. You just had some bad luck, man." "Yeah, if I were her, I'd be kicking myself right now." I had been worried about their reactions. Ever since Chloe started showing up on campus, rumors had been flying. Some people were saying I was an ungrateful jerk who had dumped his small-town fiancé as soon as he got into a good school. Others said I was a two-timer, and one particularly nasty rumor claimed I had a wife and kids back home who had come looking for me. But my roommates had never mentioned any of it to me. In fact, I'd heard they'd even defended me behind my back. It was clear now that they hadn't believed any of it. They had trusted me unconditionally. My eyes started to burn. "Thanks, guys," I said, my voice a little thick. "Thank you for believing me." The real reason I called it off was because she wanted me to give up my spot here at college. And I wouldn't do it. "See? I told you she was bad news," Mike exclaimed. "But hey, you're here now, you're living your dream, and you've got us. So don't worry. If that woman ever shows her face around here again, we'll personally throw her out." In that moment, I felt a heavy weight lift from my chest. All the anger and frustration I had been carrying around from my dealings with Chloe, all the hurt from the rumors, it all started to fade away. I had felt like no matter what I said, no one would believe me. But I realized now that making the decision to stand up for myself was the first real step I had taken toward my new life. With that thought, a sense of peace settled over me. "Hey, Ethan," Mike said, pointing out the window. "I think that upperclassman is waiting for you downstairs." I went to the window and looked down to see Jessica standing near the entrance. I suddenly remembered she had offered to lend me some of her old notes. I hurried downstairs to meet her. "Jessica, I'm so sorry. Have you been waiting long? I completely forgot you were coming." She just smiled. "Why are you always so formal with me? I just got here myself." She handed me a thick folder. "I found the notes you asked for, and I added a few other things I thought you might find interesting." "Okay, thank you," I said, despite her telling me not to be so polite. "Oh, and by the way," she added a little awkwardly, "I had those photos developed. I tucked them inside the folder for you." It wasn't until I got back to my room and found the letter tucked in with the photos that I understood why she had seemed so nervous. The next 3 years flew by. I graduated with my degree, and as luck would have it, Jessica and I were both assigned to jobs in the same city. On my first day of work, we made it official, finally giving a proper answer to the question she had asked in her letter. Jessica never knew that my long silence after reading her letter wasn't a rejection. I just wanted to be sure I had a future to offer her before I committed. That's why I waited until we both had jobs. When the holidays came around that year, I decided it was finally time to go home. I hadn't been back for a holiday in years. At first, my parents had been furious with me for breaking the engagement. But after what they witnessed at the clinic that day, their anger had turned to guilt. They had respected my distance, never pressuring me to come back. I had expected the visit to be awkward, to be haunted by the past, but sitting there at the dinner table with my parents, all I felt was the comforting warmth of being home. Halfway through dinner, my mother broached the subject of my love life. "You're not getting any younger, Ethan," she said gently. "If you've met a nice girl, you should think about settling down." I had been expecting this. I put another serving of vegetables on her plate. "I'm already seeing someone, Mom. We went to college together, and now we work in the same city." My parents were overjoyed to hear the news. "Well, thank God you didn't end up with that Vance girl," my father blurted out, earning a sharp nudge from my mother. "Don't speak ill of the dead," she hissed. "Honestly, you've had too much to drink and you're talking nonsense." Hearing Chloe's name again sent a strange jolt through me. The dead? After that last conversation, after she told me about her memories, I had never seen her again. As graduation neared, I stopped thinking about her. Even when I talked to friends from my hometown, her name never came up. Our shared past felt like a distant, foggy dream, something I could barely see clearly myself. The name Chloe Vance felt like the name of a character from an old movie I'd watched a long time ago. I could remember the plot, the final scene, even the way the shots were framed, but the main character's name was fading from my memory. I had assumed that after our last talk, she would finally move on with her life. When it came to Chloe, I felt very little anymore. Any lingering resentment I might have had long since faded. After all, you can't hate someone you no longer love. Maybe it was her constant betrayals, or maybe it was that night she chose to save Liam without a moment's hesitation. Whatever it was, something inside me had simply given up on her. I didn't press my parents for details. I just quietly finished my dinner. My father, realizing his mistake, quickly changed the subject. Seeing that I didn't seem upset, they relaxed. After dinner, my mother brought out a handful of sparklers and handed them to me. "I remember how much you used to love these," she said. I looked down at them, about to say I had outgrown them, but the hopeful look in her eyes stopped me. I took them and handed them out to the neighborhood kids who were playing in the yard. I carefully set up a small firework at a safe distance, lit the fuse, and ran back. As I watched the sparks fly, for some reason, maybe because we had just been talking about her, my mind drifted back to a holiday celebration many years ago. I had just finished an assigned chore when I saw Chloe heading out, her arms full of fireworks. I called out to her, asking where she was going, but she didn't answer. She just pushed a handful of sparklers into my hand and hurried away. It was the first time I had ever lit a firework, and the night I first realized I was in love with her. But that was a lifetime ago. Hearing that she had passed away, I felt a brief pang of sadness, a momentary lapse, and then nothing. It all felt like it had happened to someone else a long, long time ago. Suddenly, I heard a voice call my name. I turned, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Jessica. I rubbed my eyes, sure I must be imagining things. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my own eyes suddenly burning. In the distance, fireworks lit up the night sky, and in my heart, something just as bright and beautiful burst into life. Thanks to my solid academic performance and hard work, my professors had taken a liking to me. After I completed my postgraduate internship, they offered me a teaching position back at the university. I was ecstatic. It was a dream I never would have dared to have in my past life. My life grew busier, but I felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. I felt like I was finally living up to the second chance I'd been given. Rejecting a toxic marriage, getting a college education, all the things that had been impossible in my last life were now my reality. I was just about to call Jessica to share the good news when a little girl walked up and presented me with a huge bouquet of flowers. I was surprised, but I thanked her and took them. "Look at lucky Ethan. So when's the wedding?" I'm getting anxious on Jessica's behalf over here. One of my colleagues, Leo, teased. I flushed a little. "We're not in a hurry. I want to be a little more established in my career first. Besides, I haven't even proposed yet." "The way she looks at you when she visits? It's intense," Leo added. I thought about it. I remembered being struck by how bright her eyes were the day we met, but I hadn't noticed anything else. "Are you kidding? I've seen it. You're probably just too busy thinking about architectural formulas to notice," Leo said, then quickly darted away before I could retaliate. After everyone had left, I just shook my head with a smile and went back to my work. The door creaked open, and assuming it was Leo coming back for more teasing, I prepared to tackle him. But the person who walked in was Jessica. I tried to stop myself, but my momentum carried me forward, and I ended up stumbling right into her. We were suddenly inches apart, my arms around her, my eyes locked on hers. I realized then that her eyes were even more beautiful up close. When she realized I was staring, her face flushed a deep crimson, quickly let go, flustered. "Oh, it's you. I'm so sorry. I thought you were Leo. He was just giving me a hard time." "What did he say that made you want to attack him?" she asked, laughing at my clumsy explanation. "I brought you some soup," she said, her voice full of genuine concern. "I know you haven't been eating properly lately." She carefully opened the thermos and handed me a spoon. "Try it. I made it just the way you like." I took a sip. It was delicious. "Leo already told me what you said," she continued softly. "And it's okay. I can wait. Whenever you're ready to get married, I'll be the one to propose." Her words made me choke on my soup. She quickly handed me a napkin as I coughed, my face burning. "He tells you everything, doesn't he? That kid. I'm going to have a serious talk with him." "I'll help you," she said, her earnest tone making me laugh. "Did he also tell you his condition for our marriage? That we have to buy him a mountain of those expensive imported chocolates?" I asked, trying to steer the conversation into lighter territory. "I told him that was ridiculous." "What did you say?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "Everyone else can see it so clearly," she said softly, gently brushing a stray piece of hair from my face. "You're the only one who's oblivious." I looked at her, and my heart felt full. After what I had been through, I never thought I would want to get married again. But Jessica's love, her unwavering care and support, had changed my mind. I suddenly realized that even if this turned out to be a mistake, it was a risk I was willing to take. Just as I had bravely chosen a new life for myself that night by the river, I was now bravely choosing her. Boston was a city of harsh winters, but for me, any day with her felt like spring. 2 years later, at our wedding, Leo stood proudly with his arms full of expensive chocolates. "See? I told you so," he said smugly. "I knew it all along." I just shrugged. "Doesn't matter. I get a cut of your year-end bonus anyway." Seeing that we were about to start bickering, Jessica wisely intervened, sending Leo off to join the other guests. I leaned in close to Jessica. "So, I hear it was love at first sight for you," I whispered. A slow smile spread across her face. She pretended to think for a moment. "Was I that obvious?" I nodded solemnly. "Everyone else could see it. You were the only one who was clueless." She gently brushed the hair back from my temple. "From the moment I met you," she said softly, "I knew you were different. Something about your smile, your eyes, I was drawn to you. Looking at her, my heart felt warm and full. She had not only loved me but had helped me learn to believe in life again. After the betrayal and pain Chloe had caused, I never thought I would be able to trust someone enough to love again. But Jessica showed me what real love was: acceptance, understanding, and support. Me too, I said, taking her hand. From the moment I met you, I knew you were special. Thank you for coming into my life. Thank you for giving me a second chance. She smiled, her eyes full of love. I should be thanking you for letting me be a part of your life. I'll spend the rest of my life making you happy. After the reception, we walked home hand in hand. The night sky was full of stars, and a cool breeze rustled the leaves. I looked at my new wife walking beside me, and my heart swelled with a gratitude so profound it almost hurt. I had been through so much pain and betrayal, but I had finally found my happiness. Jessica looked up at me, her eyes shining. From now on, she said, whatever comes our way, we'll face it together. I squeezed her hand. I'll be right here, always. In that moment, I finally understood. Life doesn't cheat those who fight for it. If you're brave enough to chase after happiness, eventually you'll find it. And I had found the greatest happiness in the world, the love of Jessica.